right. How's everyone? I'm Tony, and I wanted to do this video to share, and I apologize for the sunglasses. I'm sitting out on my patio. It's very, very bright out here. But I wanted to share my journey through prostate cancer. The journey is not over yet. I just finished my prostate radiation. I finished it, I'm going on now day 5 without radiation, so I did 28 treatments, and I'll get to all that. But so I am now post-treatment, and I am now recovering from radiation, from the sort of the side effects of the immediate side effects of the radiation. So I'll tell you a little bit about what my diagnosis was, and I'll try to do it without the sunglasses. It is really bright though. I don't want to squint too much. So about 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and honestly, I couldn't even say that up until a couple of days ago that I had cancer. I literally could not have those words come out of my mouth. It was, for whatever reason, I just didn't want to say them. But about 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with it. I had been following my PSA, and I definitely recommend I know everyone on YouTube who's posting these videos is saying the same thing. I've been following my PSA for a very long time. My dad was diagnosed with it when he was just about my age. I think he was 60, I'm 58. And he was diagnosed, so from that, from the time that, I had health insurance, I was keeping an eye on my PSA. And for years, it was like around 3.5, it was in the 3s, I think the low 3s, I don't remember. But it was pretty steady. I think I started checking it when I was about 40, maybe even younger than that. It might have been in my 30s. Doctors, will tell you it's not necessary, but I sort of wanted a benchmark, So always on my mind, always on my mind. So fast forward, I'm here in Orlando, Florida now, in just literally about 2 miles as the crow flies from Walt Disney World. And I moved to Florida in 2016, and I, I was working in New York City for many years, and I got laid off, and I did not want to deal with the snow and all the stuff in the Northeast, so it was a good time. My daughter was in college, and I moved to Florida. And so, of course, still keeping an eye on the PSA. I'm a veteran, so I go to the VA, or I was going to the VA before I had health insurance. Now that I have health insurance, I go to, to sort of regular doctors and all that. But the VA is amazing, especially here in Florida. The Lake Nona location for the VA in Orlando is just, it's such a beautiful facility. So you go there, and you really feel like you're taken care of. So my primary care at the VA, again, we're watching the PSA. It starts to bump just a little bit. I think it went to like 3.8. We're keeping an eye on it. It bumped to 4.0. Once I got a full-time job, I switched from the VA, and I had a sort of a civilian doctor, and I loved him. He was actually an ex-Army medic, and he was such a cool guy. And sadly, when my insurance changed, he was out of network, and I couldn't continue using him, but he was awesome. In fact, he was the guy who got me to go to the urologist. So he saw my PSA bump to 3.8 or 3.9, whatever it was, 3.8, 3.9. And apologies for the camera shaking. It's a little breezy here, and I've got it on this long sort of gooseneck thing. So he saw the PSA bump from up into the upper 3s, and immediately, his radar went up, and he had me go to a urologist, and urologist did a rectal exam, which honestly I could care less about. That doesn't bother me. I don't enjoy it, but it's just part of what you have to do. I hear people talking about, they did not want the rectal exam. It's like, dude, get over it, man. It's gonna save your life. So anyways, he does the exam. He says my prostate doesn't feel enlarged at all, and so at that point he does. We go through the whole thing. He has me pee, and they do the ultrasound to see if your bladder is, how much your bladder is empty, and everything was fine. Everything looks great, but again, the PSA. So he calls for an MRI. Again, I love the fact that he's overly cautious. I just love that. Because in my mind, I'm fine. I feel fine. Everything's fine. I don't really have a slow stream. I mean, everything is fine. It's just that the PSA is starting to bump. So we do the MRI, and I kind of had a feeling. I have this intuitiveness, honestly, about myself that, I can have a very positive attitude, but I also when I get a feeling about something, I don't want to say it's always true, but I had a feeling. So sure enough, MRI comes back, and he sees something on the MRI, right? And he's, he wants to do a biopsy. And he's telling me that if I do a biopsy, there's two ways. You could do the regular biopsy, or I think there's something else that they can do that's not really as invasive. And in my mind, it's like, no, I've been watching this for, the last 20 years. We're doing the biopsy, especially if you see something on the MRI. Like, do not get into that mindset where I'm a guy and, I don't want any of that stuff. Like, this is what needs to be done. You want to save your life? This is the path you have to take. And believe me, in the big scheme of things, the biopsy's not that bad. It only lasts, a few minutes. Sure, it's, uncomfortable and slightly awkward, but whatever. Just get it done. So we do the biopsy, and he calls me back, and he finds one benign tumor and one Gleason 3+4. Okay, so if you're unfamiliar with the Gleason scale, get yourself familiarized with all that. Most people watching this probably know what the Gleason scale is. This is how they rate what type of cancer you have, or if you don't have cancer, depending on. I think it goes from 6 to 10. And now apparently they've changed this scale to another scale called the what is it? It's like a 1 through 5 now. Instead of them adding the two numbers, I think it's called the Epstein scale. So like a Gleason 3+3 = 6 is now an Epstein 1. A 3+4 is an Epstein 2. A 4+3 is an Epstein 3. A 4+4 is an Epstein 4, and I think anything over 8 or 9, or I forget how that works, is going to be an Epstein 5. So again, I have a 3+3, which basically is a benign tumor that has no chance of spreading. That's what I'm learning, okay, in a lot of these videos that I've been watching and what my doctor's telling me. I can tell you that there's a lot of information out there, but there's a lot of information that is not out there. So I'm going to try to cover the stuff that I feel is really important that I did not know, that I learned. It took me a while to learn. So the Gleason 3+3 essentially it's no chance of spreading. A Gleason 3+4 is better than a Gleason 4+3. Even though they both equal 7, the Gleason 3+4 is better than a 4+3. It's got a low chance of metastasizing. So I came back with the biopsy with a Gleason 3+3 and a Gleason 3+4. And basically he told me, look, if you don't do anything, nothing's going to happen. Like in 6 months or a year, nothing's going to happen. So that was great, because that gives me time to really consider what I was going to do. They call this active surveillance. Essentially, if you've got Gleason 3+3s, then that's perfect for active surveillance. In fact, they're not even concerned. With a Gleason 3+4, and again, I only had one Gleason 3+4. They did 12 core samples in the biopsy, came back with 2, and it's always possible that they might have missed something, and I know that they didn't, because I don't know 100% that they didn't, but I'm pretty confident that they didn't, because I did go on active surveillance for 2 years. I had a biopsy again the following year, and this time the 3+3 didn't even show up, only the 3+4 showed up. So 2 biopsies, one when we first did the MRI. He puts me on active surveillance. We keep an eye on it. It's great because I feel great, no problems. I'm very blessed that this was caught early. And I did I did the active surveillance, and and after about a year, we came back. checking the PSA. The PSAs might have went up like a point. It might have went like, I think it was like 3.9 when I first got diagnosed, and then it went up to like 4.1 or 4.2. So it was slowly starting to rise, but not alarming. So after a year, we did another biopsy, and again, that came back with he just basically said we just missed the 3+3, but it did come back again with the 3+4. So, and it was, I think, in the same place. So again, to me that says, yeah, okay. So nothing is happening, right? Nothing is spreading, nothing is growing. So I stay on active surveillance for another year. I'm meeting with a surgeon, I'm meeting with radiologists. I still don't know because eventually, and again, this is what they'll tell you. You're basically kicking the can down the road, right? You're gonna have to get it treated eventually. Especially if you're somebody who's my age, 58 years old. I mean, I was diagnosed at 56, so that's relatively young. If I was in my 70s, then it would be a different situation. They'd probably tell you you didn't have to do it, or you can wait, or depending on what the situation was. So, another important thing that I did that was important is this test called, and this is when I was first diagnosed, this Prolaris test. The Prolaris test is a genetic test that they use to measure whether or not you have aggressive cancer in your genealogy. I believe that's what it tells you. And mine came back favorable. So again, these are all sort of the check marks that are going into me saying, I'm gonna wait to get treated because, everything is pointing in the direction where I have some time. The doctors are telling me this is you're not gonna die of cancer, unless you don't do anything about it. And again, we're keeping a very close eye, 2 biopsies. So I met with the surgeon, I met with the radiologist, and I knew I didn't want to have surgery. And if you watch these videos, and I think it's the Cancer Institute, I will put the link in the description in the bottom. But it's this doctor, his name's Dr. Mark Schultz, and you'll see the videos on YouTube. I mean, they're everywhere. There's a woman who essentially hosts it, and they talk about everything that you want to talk about, right? About prostate cancer and the various things. So he was a great sort of tool for me to use while I was researching, the whole, what I was going to do, whether I was going to go for surgery or radiology. He said years ago, pretty much surgery was the way to go because the radiation was just all over the place. It would, infect all the other tissue, and people would get all kinds of, radiation burns on their outlying tissues, and it just wasn't a great solution. And again, this is not me telling you what to do. This is me just communicating, hey, this is what I learned about it. I think the mindset is you got to cut it out. You just got to get the whole freaking thing out. Just get it the freak out. And that was, of course, that's what you want to do. That's what my dad was saying. Just get it out. I'm like, look, I got to consider this. So as I'm, listening to these videos and I'm doing my research, you got to do your research. You have to educate yourself because they're not going to tell you that much. You really need to be able to ask the right questions to your doctor. And it turns out radiation today is really, what I'm hearing, is the preferred method. I mean, they're telling me that people who are going in for surgery are actually having to come back and do radiation. And again, everybody's different. Everybody's case is different. Everybody's whole, what type of cancer you have, all that stuff is going to be, it's all unique to you. So you have to make your decision. For me, my decision was we are in a technological age right now where radiation is so incredibly targeted, and there's so many different types of radiation that they can use, that they can sculpt the radiation and throttle up and back the amount of radiation you're getting based on where it is on the prostate, and it's just tremendous. And then once I learned, because again, my main thing is I have to retain my bladder and my rectum. That's, to me, that was more important than honestly the erectile dysfunction. I mean, of course that's a concern, but I just right now my biology is, I go to the bathroom like really, really good. kind of almost like to the point where I could set my watch to it. And I did not want to mess with that. So I just feel like in this day and age, and again, Dr. Schultz talking about the same thing, nowadays it's like he doesn't even recommend surgery anymore. It's like radiation is the way to go. So again, do your research, figure it out, what is good for you. Just the idea of surgery for me was terrifying. And the nice thing about radiation is to protect, because I guess in the past, this was a big ordeal, was your rectum would get burned, and then it would cause issues down the road, that you couldn't heal your rectum. So now what they do is, and I'm sure you guys all know about this, but they have this gel. It's a rectal spacer gel. It's called Spacer. I think there's 2 different kinds on the market right now. Space, like outer space, and then OAR, like a rowboat oar. Space or. And what they do is, because your prostate sits so close to the rectum, they do a procedure where they put that spacer and it literally pushes your rectum away from your prostate, creating this buffer so your rectum is protected. I mean, it's unbelievable. When you do the research and you figure out and you see what's going on with this technology, and make sure you're at a good center, because a lot of these centers, I think, might have older equipment, depending on if you're in a small town. If you're in a big city, that's that has a lot of people, and you've got a hospital that's where they're doing a lot of this work all the time, chances are they're going to have top technology. But I have to tell you, it's daunting trying to figure out the difference between IMRT, SBRT, CyberKnife. What's the proton therapy? My doctor was saying that's based on the insurance you have, and this one is based on this, and this one is that. Look, I did IMRT, which is 28 treatments, and let me show you. This was my schedule, okay? 28 treatments, and you go in every day for 15 minutes a day. I believe the SBRT and CyberKnife you can do it in like 5 treatments or 10 treatments. It's less treatments, higher doses of radiation. I asked my doctor straight out, they were doing people with breast cancer on the same radiation machine as me, because there'd be women in the office also, and they'd be going in the back and all that. So depending on the machine that they have, I asked him, I said, well, if you could have any treatment, what would you want? And he said, the IMRT. He said, because you can sculpt it around the contours of the prostate. Like, they do the MRI, it's freaking wild how they do it. So basically, they do an MRI, they have your baseline MRI, and then every day when you go in, they do a CT scan. And they do a little tattoo also. I have 3 tattoos, like 3 little pinpoint tattoos that they use to align your pelvis to the machine. It's freaking wild how they do it. I mean, like, you can't believe it. And you got to have good people running those machines too. And this is another thing why you want to go to a hospital that's got a lot of volume. So every day you go in, 15 minutes basically it takes. And they have the MRI that they did, a week ago before you start treatment. You go in for hold on, these papers are going to fly. You go in for the, they call it the, what do they call it? The simulation, the sim, right? So basically you go in to do the spacer, right? And that's a treatment where they knock you out with the propofol. You're out for like 10, 15 minutes and you're good. And you got the spacer in there, and then a week later, you got to come back in. You got to do, God forbid, it's like that what is that stuff that makes you shit when you do the colonoscopy? I can't think of the name of the stuff, but you know what I'm talking about. So you do that, so it clears out your system. You're doing enemas. I mean, you're just cleaning house, basically. You're cleaning house. And you get yourself all cleaned out. You go for the simulation, and what they're doing in this simulation, so they're setting you up for when they're going to give you the radiation, right? So they want a baseline, because when you go in and do that radiation, they want you to have an empty rectum and a full bladder. So when you go for the simulation, that's exactly what you're doing. You're going in there after you've cleaned out, your colon and all that stuff, with an empty rectum and a full bladder, and they do a CT scan, and that's their control that they use every day when you go in. So they take a new CT every day, and they align it, they put it over the MRI and the control. So, I mean, it's amazing. They have you perfectly lined up, and then they give you your treatment for like 10, 15 minutes a day. And it's it's not bad. You don't feel anything, honestly, for the first 2 weeks. And then you start feeling like the burning when you're peeing and all that. And honestly, I'm going to do a couple of different videos on the side effects, and I want to do some separate videos on some real targeted things that I did while I was going through radiation, like as far as getting your body prepared to make sure you've got an empty rectum and a full bladder every day. This is the thing I'm telling you. I saw people in the waiting room they can't pee, so they can't go in. You have to, depending on, and this is what the nurses would tell me, everybody's different as far as how you have a bowel movement every day. Me, I do it like 5 minutes after I get up, I'm done. Maybe 2 or 3 times, and I'm cleared out before 8:00 a.m. So, but even knowing that, I was still like, I have to perform every day, otherwise I'm not going to get my radiation. And this created a lot of anxiety for me. So I want to go into a video about all that. I'm not going to talk about it here, about what I did to prepare for that, okay, and how I adjusted my diet and all that, so that I knew I wasn't going to have any problems. And I didn't. She told me that she hadn't had a patient in a long time that was full bladder and perfect every day. She's like, you should sit in the waiting room and tell those people out there how to get their bladder ready. But I felt bad for some people. It's not easy for everybody. I mean, I am like sort of an OCD person, so it took me. I went through this whole sort of anxiety thing for a while. But I also, and again, in another video, I want to go through sort of this spiritual awakening that I had also through this whole thing, which helped me center myself and was so instrumental in keeping me from not getting too much anxiety. And I'll do a separate video on that. But again, so I get, they do the control that, going back to preparing for radiation, and I'm going in every day for 28 days. They said some people go in for 35 days, some people go in for more, depending on, I guess, what type of cancer you have. You're going in for different types of treatment, and I went in every day for 28 days, and it was like a 30-minute drive to get to the treatment center, so it wasn't too bad. It takes its toll on you. And I have to say, I was very, very positive through the whole thing. I mean, I was having fun with the nurses, with the radiologists in the back, trying to keep things lighthearted. I was honestly just so grateful to have the opportunity to be treated, and to be treated with people who are obviously like so seriously pro and when I tell you, I was, again, anxiety over, how are the people going to be? Like, do they know what they're doing? Is it an old machine? Is the doctor good? How many of these has he done? Well, thankfully, my doctor's been doing this for a long time. He said he's done hundreds of these space-or things. So all this stuff is helping, it helps you sort of, calm your nerves. But it's scary, right? You're going in for radiation. Am I not going to be able to have sex anymore? Am I going to be peeing myself? What's going to happen? Well, to this point now, I completed radiation, right? So I'm 5 days after radiation. My last radiation was Tuesday. It is now Sunday morning that I'm talking to you here. Sunday morning, and I almost want to say that I'm feeling, I don't want to say that I'm feeling better, But the main issue was waking up at night, honestly. And I drink a ton of water. And again, going to do a separate video on this, preparing, hydrating. It's all, when I tell you it is so key to hydrate, I mean, the amount of water that I drink all day, I won't even get into all that other stuff. But yeah, you have to be hydrated. You have to be hydrated all day. You want to be peeing all day long. Just pee all day, because that's going to keep your urethra flowing. Because after about 2 weeks of radiation, you're going to start to be getting up at night to pee. You're not going to be able to fully empty your bladder. It's going to be uncomfortable to pee. I mean, it's not horrible, but it is uncomfortable. And when I tell you, the worst part is getting up in the middle of the night, sometimes 5, 6, 7 times for me. You have to adjust your fluid intake because you're drinking all day, so you have to cut it or really drastically reduce it after a certain time. And you'll learn about the different things you can eat and what you shouldn't eat, and all that stuff. For me, I cut out everything. I have a drink. I'll say it. I have a nice vodka cranberry when I come home at the end of the night. I'm not gonna lie, and that I do, because vodka is or alcohol, for that matter, is a what do they call it? A diuretic, right? Same like coffee. So what that does is it basically directs fluids to your bladder as a result. So, it's all a timing situation, and I'll do a separate video on that. But I did 28 treatments. I'm 5 days out. I almost want to say I slept a little bit better last night. I think I'm just learning how to adjust my fluids. They say approximately 2-3 weeks after your last radiation, you should start to feel things that are, start to feel a little bit better. And I feel like I'm feeling, I feel like last night I slept, like normally I was sleeping like an hour in between having to get up. And like maybe last night there was a couple of runs where I did 2 hours. And you nap during the day if you can, it's, for me, the radiation was the right choice, because now that I'm done, I go back in 4 months. They'll check the PSA. They don't want to check the PSA right now, because if they check it now, your prostate is still inflamed. It's going to show very high. So you wait 4 months. They check the PSA. I think in another 2 months, after 6 months, they check it again. Then I think you come back again in a year. And it's all about watching your PSA drop. It just drops. It's supposed to drop anyway. And you begin the next chapter in your life. That's what this is how I describe it, that I feel like I walked through a one-way door. I knew it when I went through the treatment. I said, I'm walking through this one-way door. Once I go through the door, there's no turning back. You got to go through it, and you got to figure out how to get through that and how to persevere. And it comes down to taking care of your body. When I've since Thanksgiving, I lost, and I wasn't even trying. I'm a pretty big guy. I've been overweight my whole life, and I was about 285 pounds. My biggest this was way back probably 30, 40 years ago, 35 years ago when I was in my teens. I was like 350, pushing 400 pounds. And then I lost almost 200 pounds. I joined the Navy, and that's where I started my life. I became, and you eat like crap, and then you fix yourself, and then you go back. But I could tell you, when you're doing this prostate thing, use it as an opportunity to turn over a new leaf, because eating the right way is going to be so key. Not just during radiation, but past radiation. You want to make sure your body is your digestive health is good. You're eating the right foods. It's so key. I feel right now, I feel freaking amazing. I just stopped the radiation 5 days ago. I feel amazing. Like sitting here right now, I wouldn't even know that anything was wrong, except for the fact that I feel like I got to pee right now. And that's just because it's been almost 30 minutes since I've been talking. I haven't drank my water, and I got this beautiful cup that my daughter gave me when I started radiation. But the water is key. Keep it flowing the entire time. It is going to be so important because honestly, even at the peak of when it was hard to pee, because again, you wake up at night and you're standing in front of the toilet for sometimes 5 minutes waiting. It's burning, and you're like, please just flow. And then it starts to flow and you get relief, and then it stops and then it burns again. And this is sort of the system. But when I'm hydrating during the day, I'm peeing all day long, like every 15 minutes almost. And it's not really burning. It's actually, and the flow is really, really good during the day. But when I stop hydrating or reduce the amount of water that I'm drinking, and I think it's when I'm in bed and I'm sleeping, you get up and you have to pee, and that's when it becomes kind of a problem. So again, 5 days out. Check some of the other videos. I'm going to do a video that's going to go into deep detail on my system, on how I got prepared for radiation every day. I'm going to go into detail about that. I'm going to go into detail about what to eat and what not to eat. And then I'm also going to do something a little different that to me was one of the biggest life changers throughout this whole thing, was sort of my whole spiritual awakening through this whole thing. I mean, I've always been awake. I've been awake for a while. A lot of people, they're walking around with their heads in their phone and they're not even in the present moment. So I want to do a whole thing on that, about the importance of meditating, on self-healing. Once you flip that switch in your brain and you understand what's going on with your body and how energy works, I'm telling you, it's a game changer. So check that out. Again, I'll go into detail about preparing for for an empty rectum and a full bladder, and what I did to do that. A little intense, not really that intense, but a little bit of a lifestyle change. And these are the things that you do to get through it, right? And then I swear, when you're on the other side of it, let me show you this. They had me, and I'll put this also, maybe I'll put, they had me ring a bell. Like, you come out after your last thing, your last treatment, and you got the bell and everybody's clapping for you, and they give you this big care package. And I mean, I started crying. It was so emotional. I developed such a relationship with the radiologists. They were just amazing. I mean, amazing people. These are amazing people who literally, they're saving your lives. Like, this is not the person at Starbucks, who hates their shitty job. Like, they're doing this, and they're literally, I mean, it's so important. Could you imagine if we didn't have these talented people in healthcare, so that when the shit hits the fan for you, that they've come and they're there, like, and they're good. They're not just like half-ass, like, they're really, really good at what they do. And they care about you, and they care about getting it right for you, and your doctor cares, and the receptionists care, and they all are amazing. I got this. So after my last treatment, I got this amazing certificate that they gave me, and they gave me this big gift box full of all this stuff. And I mean, you talk about being on top of the world when you get through it. I know there's people out there who have a worse case scenario than me. Anybody who's even just coming here just to figure it out, just get your PSA checked. Just get it checked. If you're starting to pee a little bit and your stream is slow at night or even during the day, get it checked. Don't worry about the doctor sticking his finger up there. Get it checked. I'm telling you right now, it is the most important thing. They say if man lives long enough, every male will eventually get prostate cancer. It's going to happen, right? So if you're somebody like me, especially my age, and you don't go to the doctor, I just recently found out Frank Zappa died of prostate cancer. That guy probably never went to the doctor. As talented as he was, it was like once the disease had metastasized, then it was too late. Because again, if it was today, they could keep you alive, at least. If you've got advanced prostate cancer that's metastasized, if you're watching this video right now, don't lose faith. I mean, the things that I'm seeing are that there is a lot of hope. In the technology is so good, and even if you've had surgery, or they could still go in and radiate or whatever. I'm not really sure of all the details because again, I didn't do surgery, but I know that technology today is so much better than what it was even 10 years ago. I mean, they said it's like that's why this Dr. Schultz doesn't even recommend surgery anymore. And again, nothing against anyone who's had surgery, or if you're considering surgery. I don't know your circumstance. It might be the way to go. But please do your research. It's so important. And please tune into some of these other videos. I really want to create a difference, and I want to create a resource as I think of things that are important, and as I continue down my path on my journey to curing my cancer. I want to be able to share my experiences, and I want to be able to hopefully provide a great outlet for people who, it's a scary thing, man. I mean, you're going to get some sort of side effects, but choosing the right path is going to be key for you. So do that. And I really wish you all the best. Please tune in for some of those other videos. And thank you so much for watching. Love you guys so much, and God bless you. Take care.